Do you really need an expensive guitar? I think this is a fair question, and certainly a question that every guitarist has to kind of think through in their guitar journey. I remember I had my first acoustic guitar, which was it was a Rogue guitar, I think. I think I got it from a musician's friend, and it was $100, maybe something like that. And it wasn't great, but at the time, that's really all that I knew, and so it was fine. It did the job for me. And I remember I got some money, and I decided that I was going to upgrade my acoustic guitar, and I was really excited about it. And so I went out and found a $300 acoustic guitar, because in life, $300 is a lot of money. So I assumed that a guitar that costs $300 would be a very nice guitar. And, in fact, there are guitars out there that are that price point and are great guitars. But in general, that is still what would be considered a very affordable or cheap guitar. Honestly, I think at the moment I had no idea that guitars could be thousands of dollars. I was just thinking that, something that cost $300 would be very nice. And so it was, and it suited me for a while, until one day, a friend of mine had a very nice guitar. It was a solid body Taylor guitar, and I had never played one before. And as soon as I strummed the first chord, I realized I was in trouble. That there was a quality difference. And not just a quality difference, because I don't really care about quality. There was a playing difference. And it was the playing difference that really did it in for me, because I realized that not only was an expensive guitar beautiful and sounded wonderful and had all of those things going for it, but it also just felt better to play. Like, it made me want to play guitar. It made it to where playing guitar was a joy, and even more so. It was already a joy, but it made it even more of a joy. So that brings me to the Silver Sky. So if you've seen my video on the Silver Sky, you know that I got one last year after much thought and consideration. Up until that time, I'd had somewhat nice of electric guitars, but I would say kind of the most expensive guitar that I ever really had was like in the $1,000 to $1,500 range, which in the electric guitar world will get you a really good playing guitar. It's not going to be, the nicest thing, but it's definitely going to sound great, and it's going to feel pretty good, and you're going to be able to get, years and years of enjoyment out of it. But honestly, as I've gotten older and, in the past with the other acoustic guitars I played and, the kinds of guitars that I had picked up along the way, I had realized that I really wasn't going to be happy, truly like content with something that I would find wanting. If I sat down to play the guitar and I figured that this guitar was lacking, or I just wish it was this, or I just wish it was that, then, you know, what would be the point of the $1,000 that I spent, you know? Years ago, I remember being at a music store in town, and I picked up an American vintage Telecaster. So not, you know, an old one, but a new kind of reissue of a 50s Telecaster. And I plugged it into a deluxe reverb, and I owned neither at the time. And I remember plugging that in and just being ruined by it, because I was like, oh, that is what an electric guitar sounds like. That is how it feels. That's how an instrument should play. So because of all that, I knew that I wouldn't be content with something less than. And so when I picked up the Silver Sky and tried it out, it gave me what I was looking for. And I think this is the point all along, is that it's not so much for me about how expensive a guitar is, or how nice it is, or what components it has, or, you know, where it was made or who made it. For me, it's much more about what I call the feedback loop. And so for me, when I sit down and play the guitar, I want it to feel and sound so good that I want to keep playing. Because once you get in that feedback loop, there's really nothing like it. And it's the feedback loop that keeps you coming back to the guitar. And so if you keep coming back to the guitar, you keep practicing, you keep getting better, you keep taking your playing to the next level. So that's really the way that I approach all my gear now, is, do I genuinely love it? And I think I'm over buying gear that I don't love. You know, like with my pedal board, like, I want to love every single pedal that's on there. Like, I don't want to compromise. I don't want to settle for things. And I know that that's a hard impulse to fight, because, you know, you just want to you just want something, you know, something's better than nothing a lot of the times. You know, maybe it's worth waiting. Maybe it's worth saving. I think you have to be ready for the gear. What I mean by that is, I think once you start buying nice guitars, at least, the percentage of difference that a nice guitar makes to a more affordable guitar or whatever is not that much. So it's like, you know, when you play a note, you know, a $1,000 guitar might get you 90% of the way, and a really nice guitar might get you 95% of the way. Which, honestly, like, if you're playing in a band, or you're, you know, playing in front of people or whatever, nobody's going to know. They don't care. You know, it's like, they're just going to see a guitar, and they're going to hear a guitar, and it doesn't really matter if you've obsessed, you know, hours over your tone. So really, these instruments are for you, the player. They're for your enjoyment, which is fine. That's great. But if you are not at a level where it's going to give anything back to you, then it's not time for it yet. And that's okay. You know, I'm at a point where I don't know if I'm good enough to play the Silver Sky. Like, you know, I hear John Mayer play it, or other guys, and it just sounds fantastic. You know, it's like, is that the same guitar that I have? And that's okay, you know, but I am at least at a point where I can tell the difference and feel the difference in the playing, in the note quality, in the sounds. And so for me, it's worth it. But, you know, if you're a beginner, you're just learning how to play the guitar, don't buy an American Silver Sky, or an American Fender, or, you know, a Gibson Les Paul. Wait, work your way there, and you'll get to the point where it'll be worth it. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Are nice, expensive instruments worth it? Is there a point where you get diminishing returns? You know, if you go over a certain amount, does it really matter that much? Do you think you can get by with anything? Do you think a Squier Classic Vibe is the best guitar that ever was? For me, I see the value in it. But like so many things, it's not for everybody, and it's not for beginners, and it's going to take time for it to be worth it for you, if it ever is worth it at all, you know? Some people get a lot of joy in taking something simple and making it useful. Well, comment down below. Is it worth it? Do you want a nice guitar? Do you have a nice guitar? Do you regret buying a nice guitar? Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.